Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily. Yep, I got my blanket on. It's cold again. 5 degrees when I woke up with a wind chill of -10. So, and the winds last night were crazy, so I did not walk the dog today. My back is feeling better though. So today we got a lot to get to. I'm Rebecca, your host. This is Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials. Today we're going to talk about an update on the Maya Kawolski versus Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital verdict, which was challenged in some post-trial motions by Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital. The judge has made his ruling, and we're going to go over that. And then we're going to get to day 4 of the Michelle Troconis trial for the conspiracy to commit murder of Jennifer Dulos. Yeah. Okay. Kawolski. Holy moly. All right, so the judge ruled. Now, the defense in their post-trial motions had asked for a renewed motion for directed verdict, and that's the motion that they usually bring after the plaintiff has put on their case to say that the plaintiff has not put on enough evidence to support their claim. So that's usually always denied 99% of the time, but it's customary to renew that at the end of trial to reserve all your appellate rights. So that was denied. Then they did a motion for new trial. That was denied. And then they had a motion for remittitor. Now, what is a remittitor? Let me give you a definition. This is where the judge lowers the amount of damages granted by a jury in a civil case. Well, I could have said that. So what this basically is the defense saying that the award that the jury gave to the plaintiff was excessive, it wasn't supported by the evidence, and it's asking the judge to lower it. And it was, he did lower some of the verdict. Now, I don't know if you recall, but there were separate verdicts for each different claim as to each different person. So here's what the judge did. And I'm not gonna read the entire 17-page ruling. I'm gonna just summarize it a little bit. So the motion for remittitor associated with the $18 million verdict for Jack Kawolski's survivor economic damages due to Beata Kawolski's death is granted. The court will remit the $18 million verdict for Jack by $16 million. So he changed it from $18 million verdict to a $2 million verdict. Still pretty darn good. The motion for remittitor associated with $2 million verdict for Maya Kawolski's survivor economic damages due to Beata Kawolski's death is granted. The court will remit the $2 million verdict by $250,000. So he took it from $2 million to $1.75 million. And he did the same thing for Kyle Kawolski. He reduced that verdict from $2 to $1.75 million. The next one is the motion for remittitor associated with the $3 million verdict for Jack Kawolski. There were two verdicts associated with this claim that the hospital was fraudulently billing and that they were billing for CRPS. At the same time, they were claiming she didn't have it, and they certainly weren't treating her for that. So they gave a $3 million verdict and a $2 million verdict. He reduced both of those to $1 for each, because the plaintiff spent very little time during their case talking about this particular claim and didn't offer any evidence to support this kind of verdict, that the Kawolskis had suffered that kind of damage for that fraud. And I would agree with that. Now what happens is the plaintiff has 15 days to respond to this judgment. And here's what their choice is. They can either accept the remittitor and say, okay, we're okay with that. which I suspect is what they're going to do. Or they can say, no, we don't accept this. We want a new trial. I would be shocked if they wanted a new trial because, my God, that thing would cost them a fortune. Not to mention that it's going to, I can't even imagine the disruption to their lives. I've been through 1 week trials, 2 week trials, but 4, 5, 6 week trials, it's enough to put you in the hospital from stress. Now, I suspect they don't want to do that again. I don't think Maya wants to go through that again. I don't think her brother and her father want to go through that again. So I suspect, they're still in excess of $200 million. I think they're going to accept this remittitor. But, the next 15 days, we'll find out, won't we? All right. So let's talk about the trial of Michelle Draconis for the conspiracy to commit the murder of Jennifer Dulos. Now, Jennifer Dulos is this mom of 5 that goes missing, never to be seen again. Her body's never been found. And the police suspected that Michelle Draconis conspired with her then boyfriend, Fotis Dulos, which was Jennifer's ex-husband, to murder Jennifer. Now, I'm going to tell you all about what the nanny had to say and the DNA expert that spent all day on the stand yesterday and is still on the stand today. I'm going to give you the real quick version of that. But keep in mind that as of today, we've not heard anything to support a conviction of Michelle Draconis for conspiracy. I'm still waiting to hear this. I'm sure it's there. They just haven't gotten to it yet. So when we left off, the nanny had finished, or she had gotten to the point in her testimony where she said she had met Michelle Draconis. And this was during their spring vacation trip to Miami. They spent the 2 weeks, 1 week in Aspen and 1 week in Miami. And the reason they would go down to Miami, and it's a place that Fotis frequently went down there. They were part of this Miami ski club. Fotis and the older 2 kids were competitive water skiers. Fotis had a boat that he kept down there at the Miami Ski Club, and he also had a vehicle that he kept in Miami to use whenever he went down there. So they frequented this a lot. Now, Jennifer went on this trip too. This is their spring vacation. She and her mom, Gloria, were there as well. But sometime during that week, Jennifer and her mom flew back home to New York after her mom tripped and broke her ankle. I'm so sorry. I've done that, and it's so painful. So they spent their time during this week going to the ski club, going to play paintball. Now, when the nanny and the kids get back home, and let me show you what home looked like. They were living at this time in a place on Jefferson, and this house is stunning. The nanny pointed out like half of the house to the left side of this archway that you see in the picture was Fotis's office for his construction company. And they had a separate entrance, separate parking area, so people didn't have to enter the main house to get to his office. And this is where he and his 5 or 6 employees worked, including the nanny who worked there during the day while the kids were at school. Nothing major, administrative. And then later on, she did punch lists. And what that is, people would complain that certain things hadn't been finished or done, and she would make sure that those things got done. She'd call the specific contractors, and they would go out and fix those things. So following the ski trip, she gets back home, and Jennifer tells her, I think Fotis is cheating on me. And Jennifer's like, no, or the nanny's like, no, he's not cheating on you. She just couldn't believe that he would do that. But yeah, he was. Now, Jennifer wanted to split up with him. but he wouldn't leave. So he moved into the third floor of this Jefferson Street place, and she had the main floors of this place. But she had a plan in place where she was going to leave Jefferson and leave Fotis. Now, at this point, the prosecution's trying to walk the nanny through different scenarios involving Fotis and Jennifer. The nanny had testified that whenever they were both in the same room, or they were all three in the same room, she felt very uncomfortable and very anxious. She thought it was very awkward. So the defense objected, relevancy, whatever, and the judge, he reiterated the question, and then he said, listen, every incidence of turmoil in a strained marriage is cumulative. Let's get to the point. So the plaintiff, or the prosecution, fast forwards to June 19th of 2017. Now, at this point, Jennifer had a plan in place where she was going to move out of Jefferson with the kids. She was not going to tell Fotis. So she made up a story that she was going to go to New York with the kids to visit her father's grave. When she went to execute this plan, she left. The nanny went with her, the 5 kids. They go to New York. She checks into the Mandarin Hotel, a hotel where they had never been before because she didn't want Fotis to find her. And she hires a bodyguard to stand outside of her hotel room door that night. Or they actually were there for a whole week. So she hired a bodyguard. And it was her plan while she was there that week to file for divorce. During this stay in the hotel, Fotis calls the nanny's phone. Now, she doesn't answer it because she sees, caller ID, it's Fotis. But he leaves a voicemail accusing her of kidnapping his children and that he is going to call the police. And he did. He called the police. Now, the nanny only stayed there half a week, and then she goes back home, and Jennifer stayed the entire week. Following which, she rents a home back in New Canaan, and they move in. Now, it's not the home that she went missing from. That's a different home she was renting. But so she goes from Jefferson to New York and then to this other rental home in New Canaan. Now, 8 days later, the nanny is asked to testify during a family court proceeding. She goes to the court, and Fotis approaches her. He's standing in the hallway with all of his lawyers. He goes up to her and he starts again, accusing her of kidnapping his kids. So she just walks away from him. And then later on, he comes at her again with one of his lawyers trying to apologize, and she just walked away. She said she did testify for Jennifer in the custody. It was a custody matter. So then we go to September 20th of 2017. At this point, it was just Jennifer and the nanny and the 5 kids. So Jennifer would drop the kids off at school. So on this morning, she goes to drop the kids off at school, and Fotis is there. And again, he runs up to her and he's yelling at her and making accusations that she has kidnapped his kids. Now we're fast forwarding to May of 2019. This is the month that Jennifer goes missing. So I do want to say that after he approached her at the school, she went back and she told Jennifer, listen, I don't want to drop these kids off anymore. I'm not willing to run into Fotis. And Jennifer said, that's fine, I'll do it. So as of May of 2019, the custody arrangement was that Fotis only got to see those children once a week, and it was Wednesdays. And it had to be supervised visitation arranged through the court. There was some program that they had that they went through. He was not allowed to text Jennifer or email her or voice, nothing. He couldn't call, couldn't text, no smoke signals. Everything had to be done through this supervisor. Then she was asked whether the Chevy Suburban had WeatherTech liners in it. And she goes, I don't know if they were WeatherTech, but they were, rubber liners in the trunk and in the car. Now this is May of 2019. By now Jennifer is renting the home that I showed you at the beginning, the home that she goes missing from. On Tuesday, May 21st of 2019, there was a basketball hoop that the grandmother had bought for the children that was being installed. So the nanny arrives for work after this is installed, and as she's walking through the garage with Jennifer says, oh my gosh, this garage is a mess. So the nanny takes it upon herself to clean out the garage. And I don't mean like scrub the garage, but organize the garage. So she knew where everything was. Everything was in place. And she did say that there was a bucket of, like one of those 5-gallon buckets of cleaning supplies that when they had a housekeeper that would come once or twice a week to clean up, and she would take that bucket and come in the house and do her cleaning. On Wednesday, May 22nd, she arrived to work around noon. Now, this is the day that Fotis has his supervised visitation. And whenever he had the supervised visitation, he couldn't come up to the house. He had to wait at the bottom of the driveway for the supervisor to get there, and then they could go up together. And the visits were never in the house. They were out on the patio. And Jennifer would make sure all the doors were locked so that Fotis never got into that house. And that's key. But this particular day, on Wednesday, he shows up at 4 o'clock, which the nanny felt was very, very unusual. And he came right up to the house, and he was advised, listen, you need to go back down and wait for the supervisor. And he said, okay, and he did. Then on May 23rd, Jennifer put a plan into place. This was Thursday. She put a plan into place, and she said, she's talking to the nanny, can you spend the night here Thursday night? Because Friday morning, I have 2 appointments in New York. I'm going to take the Range Rover because the Chevy Suburban, it's difficult to park that Chevy Suburban in New York. So she asked the nanny to spend the night, take the kids to school, pick them up from school after she goes for her doctor's appointment, and then bring them to New York, bring them to her mom's house, Gloria, her apartment, and then she would be there. She would meet the nanny there and take the kids to their orthodontic appointment. Now, there was only 4 of the 5 kids that had orthodontic appointments. So here's how the plan actually went. At the last minute, Jennifer says, no, you don't need to spend Thursday night, but when you come to work on Friday, I want you to pick up the kids and then bring them to New York for their orthodontist appointments. So the one child that didn't have the orthodontic appointment went to a friend's house. And of course, she was supposed to meet Jennifer at Gloria's house. So that Friday morning, she texts Jennifer and she says, arrived home at 11 a.m. So she's home at 11 a.m. She said she stopped to get Subway for everyone. So she enters the house through the garage. She explained to the jury that, it's a 3-car garage. The middle bay has a code on it where she enters the code and she can go in through that middle bay, through the mudroom into the kitchen of the house. And the door that's within the garage that goes into the mudroom is always left unlocked. So as she's entering, she sees that the Range Rover is still there, which she thought was unusual because Jennifer had said she was going to take the Chevy Suburban. I'm sorry, Jennifer had said she was going to take the Range Rover and leave the Chevy Suburban because it was difficult to park. So she figured, well, she changed her mind. When she gets into the house, she sees between the mudroom and the kitchen that Jennifer's very expensive purse is on the floor. Now, she mentioned she thought this was very odd because she says it's one of those structured purses, and it's very, very valuable. It's a really, really nice purse, and why would you leave it on the floor? So she thought, well, maybe she just took her keys and her wallet and left her purse. Then she goes in the kitchen, and she said Jennifer's habit every morning was to eat a granola bar with a cup of tea. Well, the cup of tea was still sitting on the island and the granola bar. So she puts the granola bar away and she cleans out the cup of tea. Now, she says that she figured, well, she was just in a rush. Coffee. So she noticed the paper towel was getting low, and she goes in the pantry to get another roll of paper towels. When she goes into the pantry, she notices there's only 2 rolls of paper towels left. And she recalled the night before when she was there, she had gone down to where they buy in bulk. And she had gone down to the basement where the toilet paper rolls are stacked. And she pulled out a stack of 12, a 12-roll pack, and brought it up and put it in the pantry. But there were only 2 rolls left. So now she's thinking, well, the kids must have spilled something, and they used a lot of paper towels. Now, she was asked about blood. She did not notice any blood in the garage when she went through it. She didn't notice any blood in the house when she was there cleaning up. So she goes to pick up the children from school. She brings them back home. They have their subway, and then they get on the road to New York. But before they do, she says, because she said it's a long drive, she told the kids, get your iPads so they have something to do during this drive. Well, one of the kids couldn't find her iPad. So she texted Jennifer and she said, whoever it was, can't find their iPad. Can we use the house iPad? I guess there was a common iPad that they all used. And she did not get a response from Jennifer. So she went ahead and took the house iPad, gave it to the kid, and they were on their way to New York. So on her way, she texted Jennifer again. She said, here's when I should be at Gloria's. I'm leaving now. Here's when I should be at Gloria's. She did not get a text back. So they drive to, she said that was around 2:30ish. And she's at Gloria's house, Grandma's house. And Jennifer's not there. And this was where she was supposed to meet Jennifer. So they waited, thinking, well, she just ran late at her appointments. So about 4 o'clock, she's starting to panic. And she's like, what's going on? So she took a taxi with the 4 kids to the orthodontic office. They had their appointments. While they were seeing the dentist or the orthodontist, she goes outside and she's very upset now because Jennifer is not responding to phone calls and texts. So she starts calling hospitals and friends of Jennifer. Now, one of the friends of Jennifer goes ahead and picks up the child that was still in New Canaan and brings that child to New York, to Gloria's house. So she, when the orthodontic appointment is over, she takes the kids, they go by cab back to Gloria's, still no sign of Jennifer. So she drops the kids off, she takes a cab, she goes to where Jennifer had her last doctor's appointment, and she's told she never showed up. So now she's calling the New Canaan police. Now at this point, she starts to tell the jury what she told the police. She said, I told the police that Fotis just recently purchased a gun. And as soon as this came out of her mouth, defense was up on their feet, objection. The prosecutor was like, I didn't elicit that. I didn't elicit that. And the judge said to the jury, "You will disregard that statement." Now, I suspect there were some motions ahead of time that should not be mentioned for some reason, that he purchased a gun. But that cat's out of the bag. The jury has heard it. I don't know how you disregard something that you've heard it. But now they know he purchased a gun. So now this is when the police respond to, she tells them how to get into the garage, and they respond, and so on and so forth. So she said that evening, while they were at Gloria's, Fotis calls her, and she did not answer. Eventually, she does speak to him, because he kept trying. So eventually she does speak to him, and he tells her that he's got a supervised visit the next day. That evening, she kept getting texts from him, and she had no plans to take those kids back to New Canaan for supervised visits with Fotis. And she kept in touch with the police that evening too, letting them know what her communications were with Fotis. So Fotis doesn't have his visit the next day. They all stay in New York the entire next week. The kids didn't go to school. They all stayed at Gloria's for the next week. But that Sunday, Fotis comes up to visit the kids. So he goes to Gloria's, and they call the police, because he wants to get the kids. He's like, "You're my kids. I want my kids. And you've kidnapped them." And they're like, "You don't have custody of these kids." So he was not allowed to take the kids back with him. Now, she was shown some photos that were in evidence of items in pictures of the garage that the police took during their investigation. And she did confirm that the cleaning bucket was missing, or not where it should be, and that there was a sponge on the floor, and that sponge had been in the cleaning bucket. She said there were a couple of camping pillows and she pointed out which shelf they should have been on. They were missing. So that was essentially her testimony. On cross-examination, the defense just kind of reiterated her testimony. She threw in some questions about one of the coworkers, but I don't know what the context of that was. And the only thing on redirect that the prosecution cleared up was, "Have you ever been alone with Fotis on any of these trips?" She goes, "No, anytime," because there was a lot of trips where Jennifer wouldn't go. It would just be Fotis, her, and the kids. She said, "No, it was always myself and the children. The children were always there. I was never alone with Fotis." So that's it. You guys, we made it through the Nanny testimony. So I'm going to quickly tell you what day 5 showed, because I am not going to sit through 8 hours of DNA as evidence with the odd calculations from the star mix. So multiple areas of blood were collected from the garage and the kitchen. Also in the garage were shreds of paper towels on the garage floor. So the kids all submitted their DNA. The nanny submitted her DNA. Fotis submitted his DNA. Michelle Draconis submitted her DNA. All these people were ruled out. This blood did not belong to any of those people. But the odds, 10 billion to 1, were that the blood splatters in the garage and the kitchen were Jennifer's. There you go, in a nutshell, entire day testimony. And she's still on the stand. Yeah, I know. Painstakingly. So I will listen to today's testimony. I'll bring you that on Monday. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. I will be live on Sunday at 11 a.m. just for coffee and chat. We can talk about any questions you might have of anything I covered this week, or we can just gossip. Yep. I'll see you then. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay warm. Bye.